This won't be a long video. I'm gonna put some visuals together so y'all can see clearly how some of these things are constructed, like the third, fourth, and fifth, and where we sit. And then, until then, I am going to convey this to y'all via like words verbally. So, for those that can pick up on these downloads through hearing, this is for y'all. Visual people like myself, I will definitely set y'all up with some cool stuff. Anyways, let's get into it. It's not going to be long. Let's just talk about a few of these dimensions. I've talked about it before, but we're going to go through them as sort of like a little mini review, and hopefully it might round out anything that you may be, still have question marks around. So, third dimension, where we are. We all know this, right? 3 dimensions, right? The cube, right? All the 4 sides you can only see from one side at a time. Gravity, physics, like the laws, the rules, the rigidness, the permanence, so to speak. Third dimension, right? Physical form. Pretty self-explanatory. We all know this, right? Third, right? We're talking about 3s, right? 3s, we're talking about triples, right? Things happening in 3s. This is the land of the 3s. The land of the free, the land of the 3. The beginning, the middle, the end. The past, present, the future, the freaking man, woman, son, or like child, whatever. Like, I said beginning, middle, end. Like, whatever, right? Like, this is the land of like where time plays out like that, right? We're going through these processes of beginning, middle, end, right? This video has a beginning, middle, end. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, this is the land of the 3s, right? The trips, right? The triples. We're taking trips on places, right? We're going from beginning, middle, end. That's a trip, right? We're ego tripping, we're power tripping, we all tripping, right? What's real, what's not, I don't know, but we're going through it, right? That's the third. The third is being in the physical part here, conscious, right? So with that in mind, the trips, we have to keep that in mind as far as ego trips, right? Or ego, this is like the playground for the ego, right? So these ego trips that we take, there's always a trigger. There's always a start, a beginning, or the beginning, middle, end, right? The beginning is the trigger, right? The thing that gets you pulled into something, right? Whether it's you losing a game, or somebody says something about you, or your boss does this, or somebody da-da-da-da-da, right? We all get triggered in different ways, right? So that's step 1, right? Step 2 is the response, right? To that trigger, right? Whether you get wrapped up into it, and now you're responding, and maybe just responding at all is what keeps that thing going, right? Or your energy gets ramped up, and you're like, and you're in this space now, where now this is not your base level, base form. Now this is you when you're angry, or this is you when you're depressed, or this is you when you feel depleted, or this is you when you're defending yourself, right? So you're now starting to play this role, right? Beginning, middle, end, right? It's all show, so forth. So your ego can get caught up in these trips, right? There's a lot of cycles that people get put into, right? A lot of relationships and things that they get tied down to, locked down to, right? These obligations and whatnot. Third dimension, that's what this place is about. Beginning, middle, end, right? Serving your time, doing your sentence, so to speak. But we can't get too caught up in these trips, right? You can go on trips all day, but you can just be going in circles, right? There can be beginning, middles, and ends, just like every single day is a beginning, a middle, and end. And a lot of people are on a loop where we're experiencing the same beginning, middle, end every single day, or every single week, or every single month, or every single year. I'm not sure how small or tight your cycle is, but a lot of us we're on a loop, right? Hamster wheel type energy. And that's what we have to kind of start to look at things and be like, okay, was this whole universe designed for us to be on a hamster loop? Was this whole thing designed for that? All the infinite seasonings and animals and sounds and colors and everything, all that was just so we can work in this 9 to 5, you know what I mean? Like Matrix, and be on this cycle, this corporate cycle where you're in a cubicle, whatever, right? I don't think so, right? And we know that that is not the truth, right? That's why it's not working. Anyways, third dimension is this realm of all these things that you have to navigate, right? Circumnavigate, whatever, advance through. But you also have to look at it more than just being an NPC. You have to look at the game itself to start to transcend the third. And as you start to transcend the third, we get into the fourth. The fourth is the mind space. When you look at the Tesseract, If you see a tesseract, the cube that's folding within itself and expanding and folding, right? And it's like this form that kind of looks like water or whatever. If you look at the tesseract, that is what your mind looks like. That is the construct of your mind. When you see that square going inside of itself and coming out of itself and going inside of itself, coming out, that is literally your mind. That is what your mind does. Your mind has no specific form. Your mind is not one specific thing. It is one thing that's constantly going through things, right? Your mind is where it is. I'm gonna say that. Your mind is where it is. So your mind is what it is thinking of at the moment, right? Your mind doesn't have a bound to it's not bounded to any one thing, right? Your mind can think about this or think about that. You can daydream about whatever. It can literally come up out of nowhere. You can have a song pop in your head. I could say any word right now and your mind's gonna start to automatically wire your neurons to kind of picture that in your head, right? I could say Michael Jackson. Oh, your mind's already working. Elvis Presley. Your mind's already working. Tom and Jerry, your mind's already working. Mojo Jojo, your mind's already working. Hot apple pie, your mind's already working. You know what I'm saying? Rocket ships, right? NASA. I literally could say anything and your mind's gonna start working because that's what your mind does, right? And that's a lot of how the manipulation happens in our worlds because your mind doesn't turn off, right? Your mind is constantly looking at its environment and adjusting to it and adding to it and so forth. But mind control is one of the most prevalent things on this planet right now because of that fourth dimension governing the third dimension, mind over matter, right? Matter being the third, mind being the fourth, right? So mind over matter. If your mind's controlled, the matter's controlled, right? Your life is controlled. The third is controlled. The way we come at this, the higher selves and our souls, we come from top down, right? The top being the all. A lot of these demonic energies are coming from the bottom up. They can't get to the top, so they try to keep everything as low as they can to keep it within their realm of control, right? Or being able to affect. So your mind is literally being bombarded all day, every day, left and right? That's why ads make so much money, right? As long as you see it, now it's in your head. It's not like you have to subscribe to the ad for it to work. It just has to be flashed in your face for it to work. So that's how your mind works. And your mind's constantly being bombarded. And there's a lot of work that comes with unpacking people's mentalities. That's why we have therapists. That's why we have all sorts of stuff, right? To help people with their mental health. Help people and stuff because people don't look at these things. But this is literally the thing that's most valuable and attacked the most. But we can't measure it, so people don't pay any mind to it. You know, you're paying, that's what you're paying, right? Paying attention, right? Paying with your money, your time, and attention. Attention is very important. Your focus determines your reality. Mind over matter. Your focus determines your reality. So whatever you focus on, that's what your reality is, right? At this very time, at this very moment, real time, all the time. That's how these dimensions work. They're the levels of consciousness that are all happening simultaneously, but they happen on various levels simultaneously. You know what I mean? It's like a chain reaction, so to speak. So the fourth dimension is tricky because it's something that's unseen, just like your mind is, right? It's unseen, but it's literally everywhere. Your mind is constantly working. You can't turn it off unless you're asleep, but even still, it's still working when you're asleep, right? Dreaming and all sorts of shit. So your mind, you have to understand it more. You have to understand how it works. You have to understand what's going on. And in order for me to help y'all do that, I need y'all to understand about the Tesseract. Understand about the Tesseract. Look at it. If you don't know what a Tesseract is, just Google it. Look it up. You'll see it. All right. And look at an image of it. Look at it moving, and you'll see the way it moves. And the way it moves is how a jellyfish moves. Kind of, it has this kind of thing. But there's no beginning and there's no end to it. It's going to be constantly moving, just like your mind is. So wherever it is, where it is. You know what I'm saying? So if your mind is in a space where you're thinking about, I don't know, lustful thoughts, that's where you're going to be. It's going to be kind of hard to break out of it, right? If you're angry and your mind's all focused on that, that's where it's going to be. And you're going to have to take time for it to start to integrate other stimulus into the situation for it to now get out of that place, right? Your mind is where it is, right? So with that being said, we have to get out of being too deep into our mind and being too caught up into the mind actually being like the God or being the all, because it's really not. It's a tesseract. It's actually a tool for you to use, your spirit to use, so that way you can navigate any situation and adapt to it. Look at it like a tesseract. Look at it like a tool for you to use and to implement into each situation, for you to kind of swim inside of any situation. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense for y'all. And don't allow people to take your tesseract and start to push it in this direction and push it in that direction. So now you're on a little rabbit hole where your little tesseract is going down this and down that and down that and down that. And then by the time you're at the end of it, you don't even know how you got there. It's because that's how it works. That's how the mind works. It's like a freaking like that game Snake, kind of, you know what I mean? Like the old game Snake, where you have the little line and it eats the dots, and every time it eats the dots it gets longer and it gets longer. Well, your mind is like that, but imagine, and it gets longer and longer, right? Like your brain, you retain memory. It's actually a really, really fucking good analogy. Excuse my French, but you know what it is. But the tesseract aspect of it is, imagine that snake being like small. Same game, but instead of it having a long tail and every time it eats a pellet, it gets longer, it stays the same length. So it's just eating pellets. And that's really, it's all it's looking for is pellets and pellets and pellets, right? And your mind is kind of where it's at, right? It doesn't exist all in that game or whatever. It's constantly just looking for the next pellet. It's constantly finding pellets, constantly processing stuff. You know what I mean? So you may not be able to look at the tail end of how you're progressing, but over time you're going to see that you're going to start to that's going to shape your mind. What you're feeding it is shaping your mind more and more and more, and before you know it, that's going to be what you run into. You know what I mean? Type beat. But the fifth dimension is when you transcend that. You have to transcend both the third. You have to transcend these trips, right? The ego trips, getting triggered into stuff, getting pulled into stuff, guilt trips, people pleasing, power trips, whatever you want to, all this stuff. We have to get out of this space of playing these roles, right? Being an actor in all the same movie over and over and over. We have to get out of that, right? If you, it's almost, it's like being an actor playing the same role, over and over, instead of looking, it's like sort of, so to speak, it's like calling an actor by the character they played rather than the actor's name. You know what I mean? And if somebody gets so caught up in a character that they're playing to where Chris Evans now actually thinks he's Captain America instead of being Chris Evans, that's what we're doing on the third. Like, we're playing a role and we get so attached to that role that we're going to get mad at other people and fight other people if they say that that's not what we are. When really, we're not any of this stuff, right? We're all of it. So get out of that habit, transcend, and that's when you can get to that space where you're like, oh, I am just acting in this role here on this planet. Who am I? I am much bigger than this. I'm much more expansive than this, obviously, right? So you get out of that and you get to the fourth now, where your mind is starting to understand that there's more going on than what meets the eye. The fourth is another area that's just as tricky, if not more trickier than the third. But it also comes with more benefits as well, right? Like peace, right? Clarity, intuition. Like, all of these things come from that fourth dimensional mental clarity, as opposed to somebody who's confused and easily upset and, problematic, or like literally like all of those things, right? It all comes from the mind. Those are all things that you can't physically touch, right? But they govern so much, right? Vibes. So once you pass the vibe check in the fourth dimension, and you can start to get to a space where you see that your mind is literally a construct. It is not you. You are not the tesseract. The tesseract is yours. It is your tool to navigate things and to grow and to expand yourself and to become something that you didn't know that you could be, right? Constant transformation. It's kind of an oxymoron, right? It's kind of wild, but that's how the shit works. So, fifth dimensional energy, once you get here, this is where we're going to now, 2025, and it's kind of crazy. Now, a lot of us have been doing the work to get out of the third and get out of the fourth, consciously, right? Obviously, physically, we're still here in the third, but consciously, right? Consciously having that awareness of that there's more, and understanding that truth, and seeing that truth so deeply to where you can see it now permeate through the lower dimensions here, right? On the third, you can see how that truth still governs everything here, and you know that that truth actually is the truth for that reason, right? You see the math of it all, and the math is good. It's not weird, it's not crazy, it's not demonic, it's actually freaking magnificent, you know what I mean? Anyways, but yeah, that's the fifth dimensional energy that we're getting into. Fifth dimension, that's going to be a whole nother plane of other sets of things that we have to, understand and everything. But, obviously we know that it's not the end. The fifth dimension is not the last dimension, right? So we know that there's even more to it. So let's keep ourselves open, and let's be gentle with ourselves too, because the journey has been long. If you look back at all of those moments that you've gone through, the journey has been long, right? And if there's anything that you could maybe even change about how you were in those moments, right? If you would even want to change them. These are the kind of things that we're constantly doing, we're still doing right now. So we have to approach each new moment without all of that baggage from 2024 and before that. We got to look at this stuff in a new way. It's a new earth, it's a new world, it's a new time. And who you are right now, the tree that you are, the fruit that you bear, is what you're always supposed to do coming into this phase. So trust that the blueprint for who you are, the timing, everything is exactly what it's supposed to be. You're not too late, you're not too early, you're not too young, you're not too old, you're not too this, you're not too that. You're right where you need to be, and you're here. And we're doing this together. But we also have to have that same mentality of togetherness, of oneness. If we're still in that space when we're looking at all these people, and even though we may not understand it, we're still coming at people like they're separate from us, or pointing fingers, or being so upset at somebody that is now dimming your light. Now it's making you look bad. We gotta break these cycles. Don't get baited. Don't get pulled into things that are gonna make you go into an ego trip. And although sometimes it feels like that's all you can do in certain situations, just trust it. Don't get too attached to that moment. Still, even if you get pulled into an ego trip, don't get too attached to it. Just understand it. And even if you fall short, just understand that and adjust next time. You know what I mean? But at least have your node in the right direction. At least be facing the right direction. And fall forward, fall up, whatever. But I love y'all. Enough of me talking. Y'all, we gotta alchemize these energies, and they come from all directions. All directions. And a lot of us, we're all doing this together. So anchor it in, hold it down, and we got this, y'all. Love y'all.